Skybird. This is Dropkick with a Red Dash Alpha message in 2 parts. Break.
So a fun road trip with the family. Long drive on the country roads. And bullfrogs. And swamp. And coming across a interesting little find. We found a area where we know snapping turtles are frequent, and every year we always go out and we look for the babies and see what they're up to out there. And we came across this little gully that washed down in the side. Now this is footage from a second trip out there, and this area here, the turtles had buried their clutch of eggs. It must have been multiple turtles, maybe just the one. I'm not sure. And the eggs were all washed out into the dirt. So we picked up 10 of them and brought them home. And I made an incubator and set it up. And a few days later, we got this. We had found eggs that, even though it had been washed out, because it was so late in the season, they were full. They were viable eggs. But we didn't know if the babies had survived being washed out, and we didn't know how many days they had been out in the exposed in the sun and everything else. And we took our chance and we just gathered them up and positioned them properly, made sure their heads were up at the side, or their bodies were along the side. You can see the head there. That triangular point is the nose of the little fella. So we had 10 eggs and we had something in each of them. And I did my research and we got them positioned in a way that was along the lines of a picture that I had looked up. And this is how the turtle has to sit inside of the egg, and it's not as crucial given that it was so late in the season that they were already developed. But we did our best to get them in a setup that was able to accommodate and not stress them. And we ended up with eggs starting to open about 10 days after. So the kids and my wife, we just couldn't believe that we found these eggs. And there was more, and we should have brought them, but we didn't. We didn't think they would survive. So day by day, these little cracks started opening up, and they started poking out. As you can see, there's a little claw. Little paw, with his claws, trying to climb his way out of this thing. And in many years of owning turtles, we've never seen this up close like this. It was quite the experience for the kids, especially, to witness how life works. It was a good educational experience. And you can see in this footage here, this clip, is the little guy poking his head out, and the yolk is still underneath him. The egg had been moved at this point once he started ripping his way through. Kind of looks a little gooey, but very healthy. Very healthy little guy. Lots of energy. Gave him a little bit of help by peeling the egg back, but not by much, not to disrupt the natural process. We just didn't want him to struggle more than necessary. The idea of being here was to have them hatch and put them into a tank, feed them well, and then before the weather turned cold in September, late September, the idea was to bring them back out and release them. So one by one these eggs hatched, and they looked a little weak at first. Again, a new experience for us. You can see where the yolk is attached to the turtle shell. That's what's left of it anyways. They have almost like a little belly button where the all the gear is attached, that hooks them up to the yolk in the egg. You see the little fella sticking his nose out here. Again, it was an amazing experience. This is in the tank that I set up for them. And there's the remnants of what was attached to them in the egg. Some of the footage is a little bit blurred, but So this is, I think, there was probably about 6 or 7 of them in the tank at this point. All very active. Not one died. Actually, on number 10 out of the 10 eggs, the 10th one we thought was empty, and it took an additional week and a half. So I'm assuming it came from a different mother, because usually they'll hatch all at the same time. So I got them set up into the aquarium and put a nice low-level UV above them so they could bask and control the temperature of the water just to make sure everything went smoothly. I fed them feeder fish and bloodworms, and they seem to enjoy their meals and getting them, nice and fattened up and ready to go out and find their spot for hibernation as the winter approached. These are alligator snapping turtles, and quite vicious for such little things. They're only about the size of a I don't know. We're in Canada, so we have loonies. I don't know if you guys know what a loonie is. It's a fairly large coin, a $1 coin, and they were about the size of that, if not smaller, for their shell size. Very active, good appetites on them. You can see the bloodworms sitting underneath them there. They certainly enjoy eating. And these are the guys hanging out here. Not too skittish. I think they're a little more curious than anything. They didn't take off when they see movement. This guy's enjoying a nice little pile of bloodworms. I fed them bloodworms, live fish, and turtle food. The pellets with dried shrimp and that type of thing. You see that nervous goldfish going by. And here's the bullfrog that you see in the beginning clip. My son took that home for the month that we had the turtles. And this is the release day. When we released them in late September, we had them for about a month. And the second we let them out and they got near the water, they did this little shuffle and they bury themselves into the mud. I guess that's their instinct to hide. Lots of energy, very healthy. So we did a good job on making sure that we took care of those eggs and hatched them out. All 10 were successful. Not one dead among them. And they all seem to have this desire to just bury themselves down into the mud to hide. It was interesting watching these behaviors, because when I was younger, growing up in this area, the snapping turtles that I encountered were usually very large, very aggressive, and you just kind of kept your distance from them. The babies were a rare sight, and I think this is why, is they're very good at hiding. They find that nice soft mud in the riverbed and they just disappear into it. And they had a good heavy meal before they went out. I'll make sure they were give them as much advantage as possible into surviving. The female of the species has to lay, what I've read, 1,500 eggs, which takes a very long time, in order to have one female grow up and replace her and be able to lay more eggs. So there's quite a bit of challenge for these guys. Around the time of year where they hatch, the birds hang around, foxes, raccoons. They're an easy target for a lot of different animals. I didn't know the birds were part of that, but apparently, I can't remember which species, they hang out and they watch. And this guy here was, I think, number 10. He didn't quite want to go. I think he enjoyed his tank at our house and all that free food. So he was very hesitant. He didn't take off right away. I think my son had picked him up and had to move him and put him into the water because he was so hesitant. Yeah, there he goes. I believe that was number 10. And he is, like the rest of them, finding his little spot in the mud. Cute little fellas, but when they get older, they get fairly big and quite aggressive. Here's the last guy doing his thing and getting down in the mud. Alright guys, so much for the home movies, adding this up. I had the footage and I figured I'd share it with you. If you enjoyed, click the subscribe and the notification bell and hit that like. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.